disinformation is very successful when the society is apathetic and don't have the will to defend itself or at least to check the sources.
Welcome back, Recursive community. Today our podcast will be a bit different. The reason is one question: who is protecting Europe's future? How can we face and overcome the current threats? Which companies are developing cybersecurity and defense technology innovations in Central and Eastern Europe? Our latest report on the state of defense and cybersecurity tech in CEE is live. Download it from the link in the description. To discuss this question, we have also invited Ruslan Trad, a Bulgarian journalist and security researcher specializing in hybrid warfare and disinformation. He is a non-resident research fellow at the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensic Research Lab, focusing on Eurasia, Syria, and mercenary groups. Trad has reported from the Middle East and co-founded De Re Militari, a conflict analysis journal. He is the author of books on the Syrian civil war and Russian private military companies, and his work has appeared in outlets like BBC and Al Jazeera.
And if you are just as passionate about innovation as we are, hit subscribe for the Recursive podcast on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform.
Ruslan, welcome to the Recursive podcast. Thank you for accepting our invite.
Thank you for having me here.
We usually have founders or investors in this chair, so I would like to ask you to explain in a couple of words to the tech community in Central and Eastern Europe, what are you doing?
Well, I suppose my work is a little bit different than the CEOs or people who are deeply involved in founding companies. I'm part of the teams. We are explaining what these teams and companies are doing on our cyber field, let's say in general cyber field. My current work is mostly related to information operations, different disinformation campaigns, what tools are being used, and which states are behind such campaigns and how these campaigns are affecting societies. I'm co-founder of De Re Militari journal, which is a Bulgaria-based online journal. It's academic, but also a public journal. We are devoted to explaining conflict zones and geolocation and mapping these conflict zones. And also I'm part of the Atlantic Council expert staff, part of DFIR Lab, which is specifically department for digital forensic research. And also I'm former war reporter, and the conflict zones are still part of my daily work and hobby, and it's something I really spend time for researching, and how cyber field or AI are being used more and more in that field. Military is totally different than the other part of the society.
Yeah. So you mentioned conflict zones, and I would like to start with a key fact for the our tech community. So last year, the defense tech sector has grown by 30% in Europe, even though we notice different flow of venture capital investment. They are declining. Moreover, on a broader scale, European Commission has announced 800 billion euro plan Readiness 2030, which is about to stabilize the defense sector. So could you please share your comments on how do you assess Europe's current readiness to respond to larger scale conflict?
Well, that topic is not so optimistic in European view. I mean, the companies are not waiting for this money to come. They already investing a lot in that field. I mean, AI or different kind of weapons, drones, let's say drones, because it's a huge range of different types of drones. But in our current stage, Europe is still in very early stage on preparedness, and that's a huge problem because we are going on wartime situation. Let's say we are in the front of that situation. We are not already in wartime, but we are going to, because there are difficulties around the borders of Europe, and different lobbies of different ideologies. Let's say Europe is not united in that effort. It's slowing down everything, every kind of idea how to prepare better ourselves, because it's begin on local level, because Europe is still no federation, but every state have different view how to prepare for such situation. And on the high level, let's say Brussels and bureaucracy in Brussels, it's another level of difficulty for this preparedness. So there are initiatives, Eurodrone program, for example, but in general, we are in at a very early stage on that preparedness.
And why do you think Europe was so slow to get ready for a conflict?
Well, this is a political conversation, because military staff and experts for long they warned about what's coming and what is the situation and what's going on, not only in Ukraine, because Ukraine is one terrible situation, especially for defense and security, but we have much more difficulties facing Europe. Every border of Europe is currently under pressure of conflict zone. Let's say in Africa, or because Libya is still unstable, Ukraine another topic, and that is the problem of European Union, because this is an essential question: how to act united when we are not united. We have different views how to proceed. Some countries like Hungary, for example, they are absolutely conservative in that views. They are thinking by themselves. I mean, Orban government, not Hungary society. But on military level, it's absolutely clear what we need to do. But the political conversation is another thing, and that is the main reason why we are very slow. Let's say, and give an example with the recent funding cuts in civil society sector, which is crucial for developing everything we are discussing right now. Every of these cuts is terrible strike on civil society, and in the meantime, European Union is acting unclear and slow how to fund such initiatives. We don't have plan. We are in end of May, and when we're speaking, it's already summer. So, and we still don't have plan how to act. And all of these initiatives are more or less dependent of central decisions in Brussels, which of course is bureaucracy.
Yeah, and we sometimes discuss this 5-year plan, just discussing it
yes,
far. But do we have 5 years to prepare?
No, we don't have 5 years. This sector, my sector is defense and security, and every year, and especially recent months, this time slot is shrinking. For example, last year, when we discussed with colleagues and other experts on what time we have, for example, the geopolitical clash between different powers in South China Sea, for example, we discussed timing of, let's say, 2030. Right now is 2027. And at the beginning of that year, or this year, we discussed already a scenario of such escalation next year. So time slot is shrinking, and in Europe is the same. I mean, not only Ukraine, because of if we are going to ceasefire in Ukraine, then all of the equipment and military force which Russian Federation is already deploying there will be transferred somewhere else. And that somewhere else is our region, Balkans, probably Poland, Suwałki corridor, which is on the Kaliningrad Oblast of the Russian Federation, Poland, Belarus, and Lithuania, and probably part of Scandinavia. Some of these parts are better prepared. Our region where we are based in the Balkans, we are totally different story. We don't have, in general, in European sense, we don't have 5 years.
And what are the most critical technological gaps that we need to overcome for such a short time?
Definitely, you know that better than me that Europe is lag behind China or United States in AI development. Unfortunately, the public spending and initiatives coming out from Brussels are not enough to fund such programs because they are really costly. Yeah, that's true because of the data centers. You need to build another infrastructure, which infrastructure you should defend because it's a main target of any adversarial, like Chinese operations in Europe. They are mostly under radar right now, but they are active, they are a thing, and especially and also in our region. Czech Republic, for example, is the recent example of how Chinese operations using hacker groups backed by the central government in China, they are affecting the security field. So you need to build all this infrastructure, which is a costly thing, and we don't have money for that, not like the United States plan under the second term of Trump or China. We don't actually know how much China spent. Maybe this is another opportunity, like Trump going to Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates to find more money for initiatives like AI, because that was one of the main topics discussed there during the visit in the Middle East of the American president. Where is Europe? Because we need much more spending on that field. And of course, we have regulations, thanks God, because without regulations, will be absolutely disaster on cyber field. But in the same time, regulation is also a problem for development. So if we don't have 5 years, we need to act very fast of uniting all of these possibilities. For example, Baltic states are better prepared for such development. France, they have specific program for cyber field, and exploring how to, exploring is not the right term because we are already here. We need to develop, we need to produce weapons and defense measures, which are including drones and automatic different kind of weapons. There are companies in Europe, that is the good news, very well developed companies, but they need support on government level.
We can see Ukraine as well, like nowadays it's called the Silicon Valley of defense tech.
Absolutely.
And the defense sector has grown 35 times since the beginning of the full-scale invasion.
Absolutely. And so, it will be even more.
Yeah.
Month after month. Ukraine is good for testing. I mean, I know that sounds cynical, but we already have conflicts around the world when such weapons are being tested. One of the first, it was Libya, and Turkey is one of the main factors in that field. How, for example, very popular drones, Akıncı there are different drones, mostly military drones, but not only. We have also drones for espionage, and you can use for many purposes. But Bulgaria also have such experience. But yes, Ukraine is the main field where you can test such weapons and systems. But it's not enough because the general problem is European armies, with exception of Ukrainian army and French army, they don't have battle experience.
And what are the lessons that the West can learn from Ukraine?
One of the lessons is it's a point which the military staff across the continent already saying a lot, and again to politicians, you need to send troops inside Ukraine. Not only they are acting as some kind of stop moment for the Russian army, but also you can gather intelligence and experience on ground. What actually China is doing right now, together with the Russian army. They send experts, they send officers on ground and collecting that kind of information, which is very important for them because Chinese also have no recent battle experience. The recent war, it was with Vietnam in 70s, and it was disaster for Chinese army. And China is also using Ukraine, but recently they received very crucial information how their jets are acting in the context of the escalation between Pakistan and India, because Pakistani army use Chinese jets. So European armies need to be more proactive, but they need again the political backing for that.
And how the military education needs to change in the upcoming years, therefore, to meet this technological need?
On European level, it's on good level, but in Bulgaria, for example, it's old, Soviet type, very, very conservative. In the military schools in the country, but not only in Bulgaria. Let's speak about Bulgaria because we are based here. It's a problem because Bulgaria is a member of NATO and European Union. So, and it's as other members is important part of the alliance. It's also very strategically located. So, it's important for troops deployment. And in essence, we still teach our cadets in old doctrines. I mean, they are good to know because they are classic doctrines, but you need to change the behavior and mentality of this, the whole military structure. How to act in a conflict like Ukrainian conflict, where drones are most important, and drones can destroy howitzers or tanks or other equipment with something cost $500. We are not prepared for that, and to me it's a problem because, as we already said, we don't have years to prepare. We are already here. The modern warfare is happening in front of us. I mean, we can see it in Ukraine, but also in Ethiopia or Libya, Yemen. Ethiopia, it was very interesting case for to study such kind of warfare using drones, automatic systems. Drones, yes, it's the new thing. It's the, let's say, new cool thing, because they are cost effective and you can control many drones. Like we have Chinese example, but we have also European example. One of the German companies, they are exploring how to use multiple drones at once with one system. It's already tested in Ukraine, very successful. So you can use drone also for intelligence reporting, because there are prototypes of drones which are like this cap. So they can be used in rooms. They are quiet. So such equipment is already developed and tested. It's not public. And it's important to say that the AI in the military sector is not a thing which is part of the public research. So when we are reading, for example, papers for the future of AI, Mostly these papers are not including the military aspect, because military is closed. We don't have public data for what is happening inside, and AI is used in military since at least 60s. So military have experience with AI, including in Bulgarian army, using such kind of artificial intelligence is nothing new, but currently it's developing very fast, and we are going on very how to say, this is a philosophical question, how to use this AI, and where is the personality and personal here, where is the human part of the program, because soldiers will be need still.
And there are some ethical implications with now publicly discussing defense, military, and AI into all of that.
Yeah, of course. Even we are speaking only for gathering news or producing reports with the AI help and assist. It's a question of morality, ethical questions, how to use that. Is it possible to expand the using of the AI in the medical institutions, for example, or is it okay to rely on AI to defend societies? For now, we are in not so developed level of the AI. So for now, we are still the SARS. So there is a human decision needed still, but the AI have possibility to create another AI. So we have already examples of developed AI model which is creating an AI model inside itself. So that possibility is unknown for now, because what's happening inside another AI? Is it possible the main AI, the motherboard, is controlling other AIs? We don't have answer.
Going back to Europe and strengthening European capabilities, what would you say, how would you comment the idea of a unified European army? Is this a thing?
I would like to say yes, but this no for now. Maybe the French will, under Macron administration, maybe we are closer than ever to have unified military force, more or less thanks to the war in Ukraine. But in the same time, we are still facing the same difficulties that European Union is producing because of the kind of bureaucracy, and the existence of European Union should be changed, should be more on federal level, like the United States or the Russian Federation, because we need more and faster decision making. And the problem between armies in Europe is still a thing, because there are armies still using old equipment or Soviet equipment. It's not unified inside the European armies. And NATO is better on that level, but on a European scale, for example, intelligence gathering and sharing is not unified. So you need to have specific agreements with another country, even inside the European Union, to have this intelligence gathering without difficulties. There are member states which are very well developed between themselves, for example, the Western European states. In the same time, they have difficulties to share intelligence with Central Europe or Southeastern Europe. And that's a huge difficulty for unifying this military force. And if we say that, okay, we have a plan and that plan is going well, so we will have such force, who will command this force, where it will be based, and the logistical question is remain how to act and how to deploy troops, how big should be this army, and which is the main adversary. That is a political question.
Mhm. And at this point, which country seems the main one to step in? Maybe France?
Yeah, France definitely. It's interesting that the UK army is even already out of European Union, but they are already interested in participating in creating this European army, which is a good thing because the Brits have a very good experience in intelligence and deploying troops in on battlefields. Germany is also willing to join. So if France and Germany, it's classic in European level, in European history, if they succeed in creating some kind of unit, let's say German and French soldiers, with assistance of the UK, that will be very good news. And I think the Scandinavian countries will join definitely. Estonian and Lithuanian forces also. Polish army, which is right now one of the most modern European armies, but without battle experience, is also interesting in joining such force. And then we have a question: who else will join, and what will be the legal argumentation of that force? How, for example, European army composed by these countries will be deployed in Bulgaria if we have government which is a pro-Russian? It's dead end.
Well, you mentioned Scandinavia, and Finland is having the longest border with Russia. Currently, they're raising their military age for male citizens. How would the military mobilization efforts would look like in future for Europeans?
We have already examples. Finland is one of them, but they have a long tradition in. Mobilization there is another story. It's not typical European story. Finland have at any time prepared force for reaction, and you need to go for such exercises as a citizen. Sweden is another example because they are currently developing part-time. So you have to go for at least 2 weeks for such exercise, and I think that's good thing as citizen to know a basic things, how to survive in the forest, for example, or how to use radio station. Many people don't know already how to use such thing. But in Sweden, for example, they have guides distributed across the country, and they are explaining even how to use the radio station, so to gather the news bulletin for the government in case of natural disaster or military escalation. Poland and Czech Republic also have good examples. So we already on that stage, we have examples how to prepare such programs for the citizens without being soldiers. Because this is a sensitive topic, especially in countries like Bulgaria. But in Bulgaria, we have regulations so tight that even the idea of creating force outside the government forces, it's a taboo topic because this law is created by intention. So the government to have this monopoly on defense. But in our days, we need to have this basic knowledge and experience how to prepare ourselves as citizens and how to react at first when we are facing, doesn't matter, natural disaster or military escalation. So on European level, I believe we will see more examples. Government are activating such programs for exercises and military training, at least basic. And sooner or later, it will come to our region too.
Mm-hmm. And what would tech startups then play in the whole picture? What role would they play, as they're funded through venture capital mainly?
Well, I believe they are a really important part of the whole conversation, because the main developers and experts are working for such companies. And if we are speaking about our region, because
Yeah.
the modus operandi in Paris is absolutely different, or in the UK, but our region is so conservative. Our government institutions are actually not speaking to experts. We have this on paper sometimes, but actually we don't have this unified effort to create a program. In many institutions in Bulgaria, for example, we still don't have emergency plan in case of terrorism. We have emergency plan for fire or natural disaster, but nothing about terrorism or military escalation, even in institutions. We have very good experts, but they are working in the private sector, and the gap between government and private sector is huge in Bulgaria, and that is not good for the society in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and well, nowadays still many Europeans, or as we are covering Central and Eastern Europe, still in the tech communities discuss how it's still cautious to invest in defense or in dual use.
Yeah, this is some kind of taboo to speak about defense, because for long we lived in naivety that the war is behind European society. Even with all the data coming out from other parts of the world, we have more than 30 active conflicts. It's Ukrainian, Sudan, and Gaza, they are just 3 of these. We have 30. And even with all of this data, okay, many citizens are not reading news, or they don't care, they are apathetic for decision making, but the decision makers they are not well prepared and well informed because of that gap. And that gap created after the illusion that we are living in long peace and the war is something illusional behind us. It's part of the life of our grandfathers and grandmothers, and nothing will happen in our part of the world. And we are seeing that's not true. So yeah, this gap should be filled very fast.
Yeah, because as we were believing in something else, someone else was preparing for the war. And
absolutely. Let's say the other side or the other camp is already prepared. Yes, they have no social spending like European spending. So the level of quality of life is absolutely different. That's true. But in the same time, the other side, even China, they are spending billions just for defense and creating programs how to influence other societies, like all of these important and wide information operations like Doppelganger or Matryoshka or different other local and European-wide campaigns that are actually influencing even electoral process, which is the main thing. If you have political allies in the parliament, it's much easier to achieve your strategic and defense goals. The hybrid warfare, which is, I'm not sure why, still consider something different than making war. For military hybrid warfare, is the same thing. It's a war without war. Russians are very good in carrying out such operations in the gray zone. They are escalating on a European level, not only on one or two countries. And they are escalating layer after layer and month after month, and successfully. Because they can use, for example, cyber threats. Cybersecurity is absolutely needed to be understood by politicians and the decision makers. And on a European level, we still have gaps in knowledge and preparedness. How to react on, for example, if one of adversaries of the European Union start huge cyber attack on critical infrastructure, we are not prepared right now.
And yeah, the European Cyber Resilience Act was adopted last year.
Yeah.
How is Europe still handling such threats, like some specific cases?
Slow and on local level. European countries are acting by themselves but not united, because there is no unified effort or program to exchange this experience and even intelligence reporting, so to have unified answer to that threat. Like cybersecurity is a crucial thing here in Bulgaria, but Bulgaria is absolutely not prepared on government level. So private companies are working to defend the country thanks to the contracts, but that's a thing. Your government, it should be prepared for such hybrid warfare and cybersecurity threats. But other countries are better prepared, but we don't have the European level preparedness.
Yeah. And which countries are prepared
Czech
the best?
Republic, for example. France is also well prepared. They have very good experience in the recent years in deterring hybrid warfare efforts and debunking, which is very important for society, how to react on such disinformation campaign. It's a question of education, which is also we are lacking behind. Even neighbors.
What kind of strategies have you found most effective in tackling disinformation campaigns?
Well, we have the recent good example is in Romania, because the audience maybe know that at the first round of the presidential elections in Romania, the pro-European candidate lost, I think, with 20% or something like that. And just for 1 week, people were so mobilized that the turnout was more than 64% in Romania. And that was the reason why the pro-European candidate win. The disinformation is very successful when the society is apathetic and don't have the will to defend itself, or at least to check the sources of the information. And that's something, it's a reflex you need to educate. So there is no short time or short term answer for how to deter or how to react on disinformation campaigns. The shortest is on the brink of censorship. And so that is a very sensitive topic, how to react. Because yes, the easiest thing is to ban a website or specific platform, but this is a topic, I mean, let's say it's not the best. decision, especially for the European Union, if it pretends to be different than the other camp. And the only answer is education, but that is...
education where and how?
Yeah, and who will be the main factor leading that new efforts, reforms in the schools, how children are consuming this content online. Because we have, even in markets like this, like Sweden, when far-right groups are influencing 10 years old children, 10 years old. But they, the Swedish society and the Swedish government, they have tools how to react, which is not the case in our region.
Yeah, so it should start from early age, definitely.
Absolutely. And should be with the participation of the government.
And currently, as we are talking and we're in Bulgaria, there is a reform in the Bulgarian school education system, but it doesn't involve tech and AI.
Not at all.
Is there any European country that is doing that to educate the kids for the new future?
Yeah, all of the countries already mentioned, they are doing that. Yes, Scandinavian countries are on the first line, but also French education system is changing and fast changing, and Central European countries also. So it's not a precedent. We are behind, not Europe.
Yeah, so, okay.
We're speaking, at the end, we're speaking about mentality and political decisions.
Which are made on local level.
Yes.
But how this unification could be real?
I think things are changing. Maybe till the end of the year, we'll see more examples that for positive developments across Europe. But yeah, we need change on bureaucratic level in Brussels, definitely. And there are signals for that kind of institutional work is start changing. But let's hope we have time for making that change finished successfully. And again, it's a question of mentality and how you are considering your membership in that club. Is it only for money, receiving funds from Brussels, or it's more than that?
What emerging technologies do you believe would have the highest impact on the hybrid warfare? Emerging or currently present?
Technologies hybrid warfares tools they are known, classic already. It's AI is more and more involved by creation, for example, bot networks, fake profiles in the social media platforms, but it's something you can detect still. With the recent development by Google, for example, the recent model for video creation and content is terrific. I can only imagine what will happen if someone decides to use all these tools for carrying out a political campaign. The videos are so realistic, and many people will not find the difference between reality and such AI-created content. So that is the emergency right now, how to control the AI and how to use it for good, or at least for debunking or deterring hybrid warfare. It's really hard. In reality, on daily basis, we have threats like using AI for influencing societies, and it's interesting mixture between classic tools like botnets and sockers or other very traditional usage of internet, and the new thing AI.
Mhm. And there are too many unknown things in the whole picture. So we don't know how the technology would
Absolutely.
develop, and we don't know how the enemy would act.
Absolutely. And who will be braver to implement these tools for the warfare.
So how do we proceed with regulation then? Like when it's so critical, do we need to implement some regulations, and what kind of regulations?
Digital Services Act is very good thing for European Union, so that's a good regulation. But even right now, it's not well prepared for the new realities, because many countries, they have presence as a part of member states, so they have local infrastructure controlled by Digital Services Act employees. But still, for example, in Bulgaria, we have only one person involved in that effort, only one. How to create campaign to deter hybrid warfare campaigns, with right now, as the moment of our conversation, there are 100 and something across Europe. Only 100 people. It's not enough.
Mm-hmm. And what would be the first step then to kind of tackle these challenges?
Understanding.
So talking, writing.
Yeah, and understanding the problem, because many politicians across Europe are still believing that we are not in dangerous situation geopolitically and geoeconomically, which we know it's not the truth. It's not so optimistic conversation, but I prefer to be a realistic conversation.
Yeah. We try to be too optimistic and maybe delusional. That's why we are in this situation.
We were optimistic till yesterday. And what happened? We are not prepared.
Yeah. Okay, so even though now we know that we have to invest heavily in defense, that's the...
Not only investing. We need to understand.
Yeah, yes.
Because only spending money is. I mean, this is how. Yeah, absolutely. European Union spent billions for governments which don't care about European idea, or they don't care about the European defense, because they are on the other side. Mm-hmm. They need European money to spread adversarial ideology. So we need to understand how internally the bloc is acting and working. And at the end, we are speaking about loyalty and expertise and understanding the problem. Yeah, money is one of the things.
Yeah, it should be strategic with such a little time we have, but still Europeans are reluctant to think about that. They think that there would be some industries that would lag behind because we would invest in defense heavily, not only...
Yeah, but spending in defense doesn't mean you cannot spend in medical infrastructure. Even they are connected. So I think the general conversations about spending in defense sector is not rightfully how to say, the whole conversation is wrong. It's not only about spending money for weapons or rifles or missiles. Defense is much bigger than only spending on army. You need to spend in the same time, when you spend money for buying new stuff or equipment, you need to spend money for your experts, institutions, NGO sector, because NGOs are very important for development. The private sector need to be part of decision making, because the experts are there. And you need this expertise to create policy. That policy also need investing, because you need to go even to the smallest villages across the countries and to explain what's happening, and that you're not spending only on weapons, but that defense spending is also schools, education, and making the society resilient on disinformation, because disinformation is the first thing the advertiser is trying to do, because they need voters. Still, they need the democratic process. That is the irony and paradox. They need the democratic process to be influenced and infiltrated, so to win on political level, and in that case, the policy will be much more friendly to their strategic goals. So, if Europe or member state of European Union need to spend more on defense, it's okay, but it doesn't mean only spending in army. You need to spend much more, and in every sector of your society.
Yeah, maybe that's one thing that is lagging in the conversation, that we are not spending on weapons itself, but in all other industries.
Absolutely.
So people are actually worried that there would be some sectors that would lag behind because of that.
Yeah, they're right to be worried, because they are not receiving explanation what's happening. And military and defense, they are by nature mysterious, and not everyone understands what's happening inside, and that's provoking speculation. Speculations are a very good field for disinformation. If you not feeling the vacuum left by you because you are lazy or don't have a policy how to react, so somewhere else will fill that vacuum. We are witnessing right now in Europe such thing, especially during elections, but not only in Europe. We have examples in Australia, in Canada, and almost every part of the world. Speculations are bad for societies. They need to be a part of decision making, and they need to understand what's happening with the public money and why it's important, all of this campaigning. Yeah, the whole conversation is wrong right now.
Is there a country in Central and Eastern Europe that could be a good example for good information campaigns?
It depends on the cases, but for example, last year in Czech Republic, it was a good example for how the Ministry of Interior worked together with experts before floods, expected floods in the country. It was last year, and the Ministry of Interior, I know because I participated in spending expertise on what to expect during natural disasters. Natural disasters are one of the main factors for successful disinformation campaign, because it's hit everyone, and you can lose your animals or stock or house, especially living outside or in the province or in not in the largest cities. So the Czech Republic government understood that. So they asked experts what we can expect. We are facing floods because we know it's happening. The rain is huge. So what we can expect? And experts said, of course, that will be very fruitful for disinformation campaigns, especially in the background of the war in Ukraine and the Czech Republic assistance to the Ukrainian army. So the Czech Republic government decided to collect all of these experts, and they promoted through media, because they called the editorials across the country and explaining that we are facing that threat. So we need to explain that to society, that the government is not lazy or incompetent, and they, in the same time, it's acting, because the government, they actually did good thing, and they built structures to defend the villages across the country because of rivers and food. But in the same time, they conducted very successful explanation campaign. So they debunked the disinformation trends before arrived. So when floods happened, it was successful campaign because the disinformation trends was not visible across Czech Republic, and it was a successful case. How a government is uniting forces with experts and society itself.
And what about the opposite? Like, was there any really bad case?
They attempted, of course, in the case of the Czech Republic, because the main narrative is Czech Republic is spending a lot of money and equipment in Ukraine, but you don't have equipment to stop floods. But the society was prepared 2 weeks before that. So it was a very good example for how you can act if you are a decision maker.
In your perspective, what are the next steps now for defense in Europe, and how would we be tackling that through our innovative solutions?
That's a question to another segment of our society. I'm someone who research and actually I'm also consumer of ideas. So I'm also waiting for any news for that sector, how they will develop the new models to react and how to implement new technologies, not only in defense, but in general in our societies. So I'm curious too. Let's say I'm optimist on that level, but I'm worrying about our governments. I mean, on European levels, how the politicians will understand correctly what's going on.
Okay, so in the end, okay, let's think how to frame it, not to be too negative, but to be really realistic. And
I think we are realistic here. No, it's not a negative view for what is going on. I think many in the industry are sharing the same truths about the current situation. I don't think it's negative conversation.
Yeah. Recently, I was participating in a panel investing after the hot phase of the war in Ukraine. Has the hot phase passed already? Or we're
of the war in Ukraine?
Yeah.
It depends what you understand. Because the war is not stopping anytime soon. If we remember before 2022, we had this conversation, what's happening in the war in Ukraine, because at that time we considered it as a frozen conflict. It wasn't, because actually, even before the second invasion, exchange of fire occurred on daily basis. And ceasefire in Ukraine is not necessarily good news for Europe.
Yeah.
Because that weapons and not only the troops, but the idea behind deployment of troops on the Russian Federation side is not going anywhere. The idea is imperial idea. And if they are stop the fighting in Donbass or in the southern Ukraine part, they will move to Moldova or another part of Europe, because the idea is still here. The ideological side of the war is still active and still think. And that's something many politicians are not understanding. It's not about money in Russia. I'm so frustrated that Trump is trying to lure Putin with deals. Only one of the petroleum companies owned by Putin associates We need to be prepared, especially in our region, on the Black Sea region, because we are on the front line. We are the first batch of countries standing right after Ukraine. So our societies and governments should be prepared for any scenario. The good news, we are part of NATO and European Union, so this is something we are not alone. But on local level, we need to prepare our societies how to. At first, we need to be clear what is our main goal as society, which is something we don't have right now if we're speaking about Bulgaria. It's not like in Poland when there is much clear, it doesn't matter which party is ruling, so they have a very specific way of thinking. Estonia or Czech Republic, even Romania, but yeah, the Balkans are very fertile ground for any security problems in the future, near future.
Mm. So we should think unified, act as
Absolutely,
Europeans, and have local stability.
And to prepare, which means also gaining some training or exercises. We need to understand what's happening around our country, and if we are part of decision making, if we are politicians, we need to cooperate with the neighbors.
Thank you very much for this conversation.
And if you're just as passionate about innovation as we are, hit subscribe for the Recursive podcast on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform.